All right, so this will be for Thursday of this week. So on Thursday, we took a look at finding the equation of a line if we only had 2 points. And what that basically means is like if I had, let's say, 3, 1, and 8, 2, something like that. And I needed to find the equation of a line. Well, just for a little clarity, when it asks for an equation of a line, it's typically it wants it in slope-intercept form, something like that looks like this: y equals mx plus b, where this is the slope and this is the y-intercept. But our problems only give us 2 points. It doesn't give us the slope or the y-intercept. So what we need to do is we need to use our knowledge from these last 2 lessons, finding the slope, point slope, all that, put it all together to find that intercept. So the first thing to do, which is the easiest, is to find our slope, or m. And again, this is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So next, let's label these points. I have one x here, I have a y. I have an x here, I have a y. These are the first point, these are the second point. Okay. Now I just plug in things where they need to go. So, for example, my y2 is 2. I guess I could color code these things. So y2 is 2. So that goes here. Can't forget to stop these subtractions. Grab a dark yellow. So y1 right here, y1 happens to be 1, so there we go. Now we have to find our x2, which is 8. And then we need our x1, which is 3. And then it's just a simple matter of doing some subtraction. So we have 2 minus 1, which is 1. And 8 minus 3, which is 5, which means our slope, our m, is 1/5. First thing done. So again, if we go back to look at the notes from Wednesday, or Tuesday, sorry, we plugged in our points into the slope formula, and we found the slope. Good. So now we have what we need we have the slope, which means if If I go back to the point slope formula, I have everything I need for this too, because all I need for point slope form is I need a point and I need the slope. Well, I actually have 2 points to work with, and I have the slope. So to point slope form, I can actually use either of these points. It doesn't matter which of these 2 you decide to use, just pick one. To me, I usually go with the ones with the smallest numbers, just make math easier. So let's just pick this first one. So we're going to use point slope form. Which has the form y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Which, if it helps for these kinds of problems like this, your y1, x1, just use the ones you already labeled. Even if they're bigger numbers, just use those. Make it more straightforward. So let's plug this stuff in, okay? I'm gonna let's grab a nice gray. So down here I have y minus some number equals some number times x minus some number. This is point slope form. Everything down here in the gray is consistent. Nothing's going to change. Okay, so First thing I need to plug in is we can just do it in order. This first blank here is y1, which if you remember is 1. Now, if we go for the next thing, we have this blank here, which is our slope, which we did an entire formula to find that it's just 1/5. So far, so good. Last thing we need to do is right here. We need this x1, which, as you know, is 3. And just like that, we went from only having 2 points to knowing what the slope is, to knowing and a version of the equation of its line, which is point slope form. There we go. Now the issue is we don't know how to graph this, and we want to be able to have an equation of a line we can graph. So technically speaking, at this point here, this is correct. This is the equation of a line. It's just in point slope form. But for our purposes, we want to take it to this form right here, y equals mx plus b. That is not at all what I was trying to do. Okay. So I'm going to copy this, paste it, and boom. So we want to make this look like that. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, how are we going to do that? Well, this is one of those situations where it's really, really, really easy to overthink things. So what I want you all to just remember is that this entire unit is just about algebra. So right here, basically what we need to do is, if you remember back in lesson 2, I think it was, when we were given these weird equations and we had to make them look like this by getting the y by itself. That's all we have to do again. So everything's connecting for us. So, excuse me. Now, this might be a little messy because we have a fraction here, but you all have calculators, Desmo specifically, so it'll be okay. So the first, basically, this next step requires 2 steps, and you're done. And it will always be these same 2 steps. The first step is to take this number and distribute it to both things inside the parentheses. A lot of people are really tempted so let's go ahead and do this and say y minus 1 equals 1 over 5x. A lot of people are tempted to do this, say minus 3, because, well, they distribute that, they multiplied 1/5 by x. But that's not 1/5 times x, that's 1/5 times x minus 3. So we actually have to say 1/5 times 3 is 3/5. Which, again, if you have issues with that, just pull up like Desmos or something. Then you can say this first, I guess. 1 over 5 times 3. And if you press enter, and you think you've hit this first fraction, 3/5. Good. So I know it's 3/5. Now, that's the first step. I told you there was 2. The second step is a little easier. I'll grab this one. So we want this y by itself, so I have to get rid of this minus 1. Now, again, we do the opposite. Sometimes you will have a positive here. So if you have minus 1, we have to add 1 to both sides. If you had a positive here, we'd subtract that number. So we'd have y equals 1 over 5x. Now here's something a little trickier. We have negative 3/5 plus 1. So if you want to, you can go over here and you can type in negative 3 over 5 plus 1. Okay, and it says that my answer is 0.4. Now, for our purposes, let's try and leave things as a fraction as much as we can. I'll try and keep them as whole numbers for you all, but fractions are preferable. So hit this, Oh, look, the answer is 2/5. So this right here goes between decimal and fraction. So if you type this in, because you don't in your mind know how to deal with fractions easily, which is okay, we can work on that. Hit this button, answer is 2/5. So when I go back over to here, I say plus 2/5. And we went from subtract minus to plus because this is negative 3/5 plus 1. And our answer was positive, so we should have plus. And now we're done. We went from 2 points, we found the slope, we put it in point slope form to give us an equation of a line, and then we proceeded to put it in slope intercept so we could graph it if we wanted to. And to do that, all we had to do was distribute the slope to both the x and whatever this number here is. And then we had to add this number to both sides. That's all you have to do. Find slope, plug in point slope, distribute your slope, add both sides. Or subtract if this is negative. That's all you have to do for these. And it's consistent. You do the same thing for all the problems. Only thing to keep in mind is if you have like a negative in one of these, specifically these, then if this is like minus -1, that become plus. But this is pretty consistent, straightforward. But if you have any questions, just let me know.